Travel with me for a moment into the world of imagination. If that door opened and you actually see walk in an inmate, at least from a con, from the penitentiary in Spring Hill, and you know he's just been released, what would be your reaction? Think about somebody who you very well know has been in a strip club. And even when they walk in, you can actually clearly see evidence of the fact that there's been something grossly wrong here. Will you maybe say, turn back, I'm going to change your dress? I was traveling at some point long when I was in high school teacher training. And the bus I got on to get to my destination had a person in it who actually had leprosy. You could see how terrible the skin was and the stench that was coming from there. All of us on the bus were just... But the person was clearly on the mend and was allowed to get on the bus. But you could see how those of us who... It's just like if somebody here was brought in on a stretcher, taken to the hospital, would that be our reaction? I want you to think of various situations. These characters who are on the street, these reprobates who are everywhere, these bad, name them. If they set foot here, what should be our response? We did read of that woman that felt she couldn't be as effective as she should be because she was haunted by her former past life. And we did read of David, who, when actually he was moving towards the kingship, had actually to flee from his master Saul, who was seeking him like a partridge, and against God's will was wanting to kill him. But David was protected by God. But look at the kind of fellows who went to him. The ones who are in debt, the ones who are in problems, the kind of fellows you don't want in society. And later on, this was to be the greatest king of all time. But look at where he began, entertaining those who the average person runs away from. When we get advertisements for the volunteership we learned about here, or for a job, we are not told, be an ex-convict. We are told, bring a record that shows there's no crime in you. This is what happens. Should the church also be like that? We only want those who have good reputation. If you're bad out of our church, you're bringing a bad name to the church. We wonder more often than not, will we ever fill these pews? Oh, I've asked that question several times lately. And let's not stop asking. Because if we are going to fill them, we should be those who welcome the needy, the poverty-stricken, the troubled at heart, the yearning for compassion and kindness. If the hospital wanted those who are healthy, they would be empty tomorrow. Yes, the church is meant to be the spiritual hospital that those that are in great need run to and find refuge. Sadly, they come to others who are just as sinful as themselves. The only difference being that the ones they find have tasted and known the kindness of the Lord. And it's up to those who have tasted and known the kindness of the Lord to show that that kindness of God is a difference in their lives. The disciples have something to teach us with regard to how they experience the Lord Jesus. so that as we experience Him the way they did, would be burning with passion for the service of the Master. And then would tell the onlooking world, we know where to find God. We have found God. Come with us and let us together enjoy the healing that comes from above. Will we do that? We will if we share only these three experiences that these apostles had. We could bring out more, but let's just point out three. Look at how these apostles longed for Jesus. We are told as they were walking, they had only one name in mind. What name was that? Jesus. They were talking, they were arguing, they were disputing, they were discussing this being called Jesus. In other words, his absence in their lives left an aching void, and they longed for that Jesus. And the goodness of Jesus, there is no soul that longs for him to whom he will not appear. And I want to believe we who are seated in this house today have a desire to house this Jesus. He will not be distanced from you for his sakes to come to fulfill the yearning, the longing, the craving of all seekers that genuinely are looking out for him. And he wants to do that so that they may be the ones who, on this earth, fulfill the mission that was alive in him when he was on this earth. Will you be the one? Do you have the longing? If you have the longing, then notice that Jesus actually does show himself to those that belong to him. For notice, it says, as they fellowship with Jesus, because Jesus himself appeared. And he did not just show himself. Notice, he went along with them. So he fellowshiped with them. Think about it. The joy of the presence of heaven, of God. Yes, reiterate what you said last week. Not just the idea that there is something called God, something vague, something unclear, something you can't touch, sense, realize, experience. No, it's not that. It's a reality. He appeared and he walked along with them. So there was fellowship between this Jesus and his followers, his disciples. That's why they're his disciples, his followers, because they learned from him. He had revelations to bring to them. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, is that a reality in your life? Have you had an encounter with Jesus? Has he really appeared to you? And can you say, I've seen him, I've touched him, I've felt him, I've experienced him, and I know he's in me? Oh, you can open your eyes as widely as just as I opened mine and say, huh? With whom can that ever happen nowadays? They met him in a physical sense. We meet him in a spiritual sense. Because as the Apostle Paul sensed the ray of light when he was going to torture and kill and persecute and hurt and harm the disciples of Jesus, the ray of light appeared. That ray of light comes to you in form of the word that is being spoken to you. You need it so. You know the deep yearning of your heart, and you hear today that Jesus went about doing good. And the good he went about doing is this, primarily to take away sin and bring God alive in the lives of people. Would you believe that? Do you know your need? Then speak to him and say, here am I, have me now. And the experience you have will be the assurance you get that Jesus is not dead, but is alive. The consequence of that is our last thought. We learn from the Lord Jesus Christ. And notice how the text tells us. He opened their eyes that they could understand. And beginning from Moses, he showed them in every part of the Bible the things concerning himself. Notice therefore, if I read my Bible correctly, beginning at Genesis, go to Exodus, come to Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, and so on, up to Revelation, which is the consummation, the conclusion of all things. In each of those books, Jesus is there. If I read with opened eyes, and if I read with closed eyes, I won't see him. But this is where I find Jesus. It's in the Word. It's in his writing. It is in his speech. He is himself the Word. Does he hide himself? No, he doesn't. He opens himself up. And those then who meet him in the Word begin to be who he is. Are you that one? What did Jesus do? Did he go hurting people with his words? No, he soothed people with his words. What did Jesus do? Did he taunt those who were sick? No, he healed them. What did Jesus do? Did he add to the care and concern the worried had? No, he did not do that. He actually comforted them. What did Jesus do? Did he discard the robbers and murderers and the reprobates and the prostitutes and the evil characters? No. He wooed them to himself and was disliked by the holy people of those days who thought themselves holy because they said, this man claims to be God's son, and yet he intermingles with sinners. I want to ask you, my brother. I want to ask you, my sister. You call yourself God's. How much are you learning from Jesus to be able to draw to yourself people of ill repute that because of their encounter with you, their reputation might change. They become good because they've experienced you in their lives. I have noticed we are all good at talking, and I said that this last, let me say it again. How much has our talk helped grow us, or how much has our talk helped destroy us? Let's ask ourselves that question. Jesus talked to build, not to break, to heal, not to harm, to give life, not to kill. How far has our speech gone in that direction? Let each one of us self-examine, because if we are his, we will. Our idea is not to show ourselves, not to care about ourselves, but to be concerned about this Master who has come to save. Are we his instruments? For those who are his are also his channels of blessing to others. Are you that one? It is very easy for us to repel a lot of people. And I gave you this illustration, and I'll close with it. 2 vouchers descended upon some prey. And as soon as they descended, they realized they were pecking at it at one time. So they both looked at each other. You don't want to eat that. I should be mine. You want me eating it? And so they began to wrestle with each other. In the process, they went away from the prey. Somebody foreign passed by and said, thank you very much, and went away with it. While we are looking into each other's faces and brushing at each other and fighting with each other, the prey is being lost. The souls that should be drawn to God because of us are being discouraged by our talk and our conduct. Why do we want to lose the prey when God says he's looking for laborers? How much are we working towards drawing people? He who doesn't gather with me, Jesus says, scatters, and therefore doesn't belong to God. Who will gather with Jesus? That one belongs to God. Though we don't have the courage, if you are fired up, you have the courage. These fellows were afraid before they encountered Jesus. But as soon as they encountered Jesus, even the midnight could not stop them. They went away, they must speak about him. And found others who would speak about him. And they grew and more speaking about him. No wonder they grew many. Now, while we fold our hands, or just fight amongst ourselves, see the empty pews. but I know you don't want that. So will you this day say, Jesus, here am I, help me, and let him use you? Or will you repel the master? I trust you will come. Let's pray. Our Father, we are thankful for your Son, who to himself has drawn many of ill character, sickly reputations, and repulsed by those who have a high opinion of themselves. And we thank you that he drew us, even us, to himself. And we pray, dear Father, that each person present here will so yield submission to you that they will be your instruments in bringing others in. That your domain might begin to dominate. For by and large, you have allowed the world around us to dominate us. We do what the world wants, even at the expense of committing ourselves to you and the cause of Christ. I will pray that we who hear your word this day will begin to think and act differently, in line with the unctions of your word and the movements of your gracious Spirit upon our hearts and the appeals of your dear Son, who is at home in us. And Father, in these pleas, hear us as we sum up our plea before you in the very ways our Savior taught us that in this way we should pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Where do we go from here, Jane? 463, thanks. before long, he left the church again. Because after falling in love with the young girl, some very holy woman in the church went over to the young girl and whispered something that this young man had done 10 years earlier. The relationship was broken, the man's heart was broken, and everyone can guess what happened after that. We don't intend to break, we intend to build. We are God's people. May God help us do that, and do it with the call of our heart, even our Savior himself wants us to. But for this very reason, he leaves us on earth to be builders, not breakers. And to all who heed then the cry of the Master, gather with me, may upon them a blessing be given that only he can give, and that we reap eternal blessings. May that be yours, who hear his word this day, for his great name's sake. Amen.